What's up, guys? Welcome back to Illuminated. My name is Colby Tate, and to my right here is Kurt Foster. He is our Gateway Church College pastor, and we are so excited to have him on the show. Kurt, if you would just give us a little intro of who you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. My name is Kurt, like he said, and I have the pleasure of working in Gateway as the college pastor and also as our operations director at our South Campus.
Great. So, Kurt, how did you find your way to Austin? It might be my understanding that you aren't from here.
I am not. I'm from California, but I moved from Washington, so it's all good. No. But Austin, yeah, for me, moving to Austin was something that my wife and I prayed about. We were living up in Washington, and we were ready for a move. We were ready to do something different. For me, it was trying to find a job at a church. We were helping a church plant, and through kind of a couple connections of friends, we got connected to Eric Bryant, our campus pastor here, and he basically invited me to apply for a leadership program here. Went through that, which was grueling. Unfortunately, the program was canceled, but Eric invited me out anyway, and in that invitation, after I said yes, he asked me to help start the college ministry at Gateway, which they've never had an official college ministry. They had like small groups and things like that. And so that's kind of why we just moved. We packed up everything, sold, my wife's name's Katie, sold her car, and just made our way. It was a long trip. Actually got food poisoning on the way.
Oh, food poisoning, that's the worst.
Yeah, it was terrible. We were literally driving, throwing up in a bag, like, here we go.
Gosh.
We're going to make it happen. And we got to Austin about 2 years ago now.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I know that we, as a student, like our college ministry, have been blessed to have you guys. We, before they were here, there was a few volunteers who would sometimes host the college ministry at their house. Rob and Jen, shout out them. They are amazing. We used their space for a very long time, and we were very appreciative of them before we ended up here at Gateway South every Thursday. So pretty much every Thursday since last September, maybe?
Yeah, we'll be about a year and like a week here.
Yeah, so what were some of the biggest challenges that you think that you faced on this journey towards, coming from Austin, or from where you're from to here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I've always lived on the West Coast, and it's a little bit different culture, very fast, living just outside LA, just outside Seattle. It's super fast paced, different issues, not really culturally Christian like you get in Texas or in the South or the Bible Belt. But the challenge, was definitely just adjusting, which really it wasn't hard because people are so hospitable here, and people want to get to know you. I think that was kind of the biggest change. And then moving from not doing work in ministry to doing work in ministry was a new change because it was always something I wanted to do, something I hoped and prayed to do. And getting to do that was just a whole new world of time management and stress, and like you can work 24 hours a day in ministry.
Right.
But that's kind of how it's been transitioning for me.
Right. A lot of people say that Austin is kind of becoming like the new LA. And a lot of people from LA have been moving to Austin consistently. Like a lot of people from our church, actually, like every new person I meet at church is like, I'm from LA. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Every other person I've met is also from LA. But that's super interesting. Where do you think that you see college service going in the future?
Yeah, I have big dreams. I think like 5 years, 10 years ahead. I think it's something that there's such a huge need in Austin. I mean, it's less than 2% of college students in Austin go to church. And that's crazy considering we have just between UT and ACC alone, it's over 100,000 students. And so it's just such a small amount. And so to me, I think like what we're doing on Thursday nights at service really has capacity to just be a safe space for so many. and eventually to the point where like we can break out and have our own campuses, or even our own campus, period, like our own church campus just for college students. And also like part of that to me too is like having student leaders like yourself and like Noah and Frank who films, is just creating something that we keep developing, like future leaders, even if they're not going to be working in ministry. And so having a ministry that really grows but stays intimate always in small groups, and then really getting to something that is like a leadership school for our leaders would be like, that's one of my big dreams.
Yeah, I think that work is just so important. There, like what you were saying about like the 2% of college students actually having like a college home is really upsetting. I know that I don't know where I would be if I didn't have a college home, especially here at Gateway. So yeah, definitely one thing for me is what I'm going to try and do a little bit more often is try to invite more college students to be here at college service, and just to invite them to kind of begin exploring faith, right? But I would also, I want to ask you, like, how do you think that we can start better, like, reaching out to college students more often?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways. There's usually, I think a lot of time when we think of like being invitational, we think like the big billboard and and like having tables on campuses. And I don't think, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think that's kind of like, let's build a huge fire and get as many people around as we can.
Yeah.
And I think really, I believe that Christ calls us to evangelize through relationship. Like it's not come join the Jesus crew and then we can be friends. It says be friends. And then the way you love them as friends should, maybe not should's a good word, it would, if you're loving them correctly, like encourage them, like, man, who's this Jesus guy that you're talking about? Or what's going on Thursday nights that you go to? And so I really think, that being said, it's just being really bold. I always say start in your own backyard. Like we all have friends, hopefully, right? Like we have friends. If you don't have friends, come on a Thursday night, right? But like we all have friends. And so if you start with your friends just relationally, caring for them, and really simple, just start praying for those. Like praying for those friends in your life who aren't here on a Thursday night. And you can really see how God's going to take that and just speak to them. And like they're going to be interested. Like, you know, having some friends that have come for some of the leaders and what they've shared with me when I've kind of asked them, and I'm pretty direct, I kind of ask people like, hey, what'd you think? And they always say like they felt like they could come and they weren't sure what they believe, and they felt welcome, they felt cared for, and it's like a positive environment. Like they felt, lack of a better term, they felt like good energy. And so I think a lot of that just starts with each person being in a relationship with Christ and making a point to just love on those around them, and don't hide. Like there are amazing opportunities. Someone's going through something, to ask if you can pray for them. And it's amazing watching what God can do with something as simple as someone knowing you're praying for them, even if they don't believe in that. It's just showing like you're doing, in my opinion, praying for someone is basically, it sounds weird, but it's like telling them, I love you and I care for you no matter what.
Yeah. I like what you said about becoming friends with these college students first. I think that has been very important to me, and I think that's one of the biggest ways that I've been able to reach out to college students and to get them here potentially is just befriending them first and then inviting them, because I think that people are less likely to come if they don't kind of already know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, then it's kind of it's a little less effective in getting them here, because it kind of decreases the comfortability level that they have with being here and just being around other Christ followers. So I think that's a big part of it. So if you are a college student or a high school student interested in helping your friends get a little bit closer to God, definitely reach out to them first just about who they are, about just kind of becoming friends with them, learning about who they are, introducing yourself so that they can learn who you are. And once that they have established that you are a person with good values and things, they'll be a lot more likely to show up to church and to trust you. So yeah, I'm curious on, like, in your childhood, like, how were you involved in your church? we have a lot of viewers who are young and who are kind of trying to explore faith as a middle schooler or high schooler. I'm kind of curious on how that was like for you.
Yeah, for me, I grew up going to church. It was just like what my parents did. And I've told my brothers it's what they did. But I felt really lucky because a lot of times when you grow up to church, it's kind of like you have to go. And the only rule my dad really gave us was like on Sunday morning, like you have to come with us, but like you don't have to go in. Like you don't have to go in the service. Like you can, there are many times I literally was just outside shooting hoops by myself, you know, like it wasn't a requirement to go in. And I really always appreciated that. Because then I really felt like at a young age, I got the choice. Like, do I want to go in and really what brought me in, I love music, and we had some phenomenal musicians at our church who were just like in their own right. Like they weren't just good church musicians, they were good musicians. Like they really played in the secular world and playing shows and stuff. And being close to LA, the music scene is a big part of it.
Right.
And that's really what kind of got me into it. And then once as a young age, when I began following Jesus and I was 8, and I would say I understood as much as I needed to for an 8-year-old, as much as I was able to. But it was really in high school when I really took on being just a heart to serve. And I was really raised in a home where serving or volunteering wasn't like something you're required to do as a Christian. And it wasn't like, yeah, well, like I'll help out a little bit. My dad told us like you want to serve because you want to help people and like you see need and you can fulfill it. Mm-hmm. And then you always say volunteer like you're getting paid. And I think that's really huge because when you do that, like you really commit to doing something and being engaged. And so I felt really lucky because I just had a lot of mentors in the church that were like saw, you know, like a 12, 13-year-old kid that was like, I just want to help out. Like it's really powerful to go, even if you're at a church, if you're at school, to go to a teacher, to go to a preacher, go to a pastor, whatever, and just ask them like, what do you need? Like, what do we need? Like, what do we need help with? And, you know, he might say, oh, actually, no, just keep coming, man. Like, that's fine. Or next thing you know, you're greeting the door, or you're an offering, or whatever. Like, you're doing something, or you're in the band. Like, I got to play, it's 7th grade, I got to play in the worship team. Like, not many 7th graders get to play main service worship team.
Right.
And I was a decent musician. I wouldn't say great enough to be like, yeah, he's got to play. But yeah, I think that's a really good way to just engage. And for me, that it really built this servant-heartedness. So like God's always wanting to build us up and encourage us. And he really serves us in a beautiful way. And for me, it's like you get to do that with him and be empowered to do that. So I think that was amazing to grow up in.
Yeah. I like, you said volunteer like you're getting paid.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty accurate. It's like, even though you're not actually going to get paid, you are getting paid spiritually, and you're getting paid through like your relationships. Your relationships are growing.
Yeah.
I know that for me, whenever I volunteered through church, I was making a lot of closer friends. One way that me and Noah really grew in our friendship was just volunteering together. We went on at least 5 mission trips across different places across the world, and that really just made us a lot closer as friends, but also as followers of Christ. And definitely like exploring like ways that I could volunteer through church on a weekly basis was another important thing. Whether it be like serving with the kids, the elementary students, or even high school, middle school students. And recently we had winter camp, summer camp actually, and that was a great way for not only to connect with these young students, but also to connect with each other and to grow a little bit more with God. So, yeah, I'm curious, did you have any like camp experiences growing up, or like what was that like?
Yeah, 12 years I went to summer camp.
Wow, 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years I went straight, 12 years straight. Had a gap year from summer camp. And then I was a counselor for a year, and then actually ran my own little summer camp for a youth group, which was like the most stressful 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to do it, to plan 5 days
Oh my gosh.
by myself with one helper. So that was a challenge. But yeah, I think for me, a lot of camp experiences, it was great, a really great place to invite people. Like, it was really easy to get people who honestly were like straight up atheists to come to camp.
Yeah.
Because at minimum, they're like, you know, depending on how your church does it, like our church growing up had like a scholarship thing for people who weren't part of it. And so that's how we would kind of pitch people, as like, hey, like, it's a Christian camp. Like, you're going to hear about Jesus, but you don't have to pay. And so like they would come, like, you're going to have fun. There's like, you know, 5 hours of free time every day and rec and all the crazy game stuff. I mean, you know, like you grew up doing camp and the blast. And so for me, it was always a really great point to like do that. And then my church, our group of guys, we were all very competitive. We all were like very into sports growing up and in high school. And so that made us, during recreational games, like hyper competitive and a brotherhood. And like we used to practice the games before camp so we could go and just dominate.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a lot of just like brotherhood growth. And out of that, I mean, the best man at my wedding was because of going to camp with him and like sweating and bleeding and playing silly games together.
Yeah.
And then like having the late night conversations where you're exhausted, don't know why you're still awake, and you're like, usually you start talking about girls first, right?
Of course.
And then you just start talking about like life and getting to real things like dealing with depression or dealing with parents that got divorced, and having like, you know, young guys like that together really for me made camp all the difference. And I will say, this last time going to camp and being one of the directors, like behind the scenes, you know, camp wasn't as much an experience for me as it was something like we got to work and do, which I loved. I mean, I want to change it. But usually a lot of times in my camp experience, not to like, you know, talk bad about the camps I went to, it was like a mountain high, you know, and you go and you get this high and you're like, yes, Jesus. And I was like, yeah, it's easy to like love Jesus when you're in a camp like 2 hours from anything else in the middle of the wilderness, right? It's really easy to feel like close, and everyone in the room is a Christian and loves Jesus, or they're just being quiet if they don't. And usually you come back and you go, all right, now how do I remember this? Like, how do I keep this up? And I thought going to this camp, like I said, I wasn't even a student. I wasn't like all of you college people like killed it and had a great time too. Like I was like a lot of behind the scenes directing, tons of planning. And just when I came back from camp, like what happened, what God did, it wasn't, I came back and I couldn't be the same as I was when I went.
Yeah.
And I think that's what like your hope is for every camp, is it's not about a mountaintop meet Jesus experience. It's about a real transformative experience. And it is in the community. And like, yeah, are we creating this like bubble for a few days?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what we want to do. It's like hyper intensive. But yeah, that was kind of, like I said, that's a long story short, is camp was, I've done a lot of camp. And I think this year was like more incredible than any camp I've ever been in or been a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. To take it from this man right here, camp, y'all, is different. Camp is different. It's not like going to school. It's not like going to Bible school. It's different. It is an experience that you have to learn more about who God is while also just having tons of fun. And I think that's what makes it so transformative for young people, is that like a lot of times just going to church isn't exactly fun. You know, it's not like, you know, you're not going to go to church and have just the best time of your life, but like you're going to go to camp and you're going to be in church and having the best time of your life. And really like what you said about having you come out different than the way that you went in is just so accurate. It's like, for me, even just volunteering at camp had me coming out differently than how I went in. Exactly. And it's just like, even as you said, with these conversations that you end up having with students and these relationships that you end up having with other people, these are things that you'll remember for the rest of your life. For me, it was like, I still remember some of the conversations I've had looking up at the stars with these guys at camp, and they're transformative. It's you know, it's rare for you to have these conversations with people and get that deep. And I think that camp just makes it so easy compared to doing it, on a daily basis at school in the cafeteria or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, if you guys are thinking about going to camp, if you're on the edge about it, definitely do it. This is your sign. Go to camp. It will change your life. But just to kind of like end it on a good note, like I want to ask you, as a college pastor / operations director, what are some of the biggest pieces of advice that you have for our high school students who are going into college?
Yeah, I think, so I thought about this question even before you even wrote it. I knew you were going to ask me. And I was thinking, like, putting myself in those shoes, what would have been helpful for me? And what it really came down to a lot was thinking about who you surround yourself with. And I'm not trying to say, like, you got to surround yourself with, like, God-fearing Christians or wonderful people. It really was surrounding yourself with people who are all about encouragement and growing just as a human, and who challenge you in ways, maybe something like your faith, right? Who challenge you in your faith, who challenge you to really, I would say a good way to say it, not push you to be better. They, like, you're getting called upward, right? And like you all are encouraging each other to be everything you can. So I think it's really important, like, who you surround yourself with in a lot of ways can really define where you're at, but also where you're going. And I think that's really important, like, especially, if you're going out of college, like going into the real world, or you're going into college. Yeah. That first semester can be pivotal in who you surround yourself with, and how they build you up, and how they care for you when you're beat up, because you're going to get beat up in life. Like, that's just a reality. And like, people who are willing to walk through the mud with you, but also walk on the mountaintop with you. I think that's everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Man. We are so thankful that we were able to get you on. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. Hopefully we'll be able to have you on the show again sometime in the future.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So guys, today our main idea is going to be to surround yourself with people who are going to push you further in your faith, and to go to camp. It is a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
So we love you guys. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Illuminated Show. This guy's Instagram, Ferdy Coster. Curdy Foster?
Ferdy Coster.
Ferdy
yeah,
Coster,
man, you
yeah.
said it right.
All right. Follow us on Instagram. Make sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We love you guys. Stay up. Stay blessed. We're out.